Deep Rock Galactic Survivor is the brand new game whose genre can be hard to define. It's a bit of a blend of a survivor, a roguelike, and a bullet heaven, but one thing that it certainly isn't is easy. This video will give you 8 tips that I've picked up to help you eliminate that dreadnought and prepare yourself for higher hazard levels. Tip number 1. Farm, farm, farm. As with many games where difficulty scales with time, your goal is to do what most people refer to as staying ahead of the curve. Put simply, this just means to get stronger faster than the bugs get stronger. In Deep Rock Survivor, you can accomplish this in a few ways. Mine as many resources as possible, especially on stage 1 and 2, because that is when you will have the most breathing room. Specifically, try to mine as soon as you get out of the drop pod, because this is often the only moment you'll have where there aren't hundreds of bugs on your tail. Make sure to complete your secondary objectives. These will reward you with a decent chunk of XP and a whole load of gold. If you ever feel like your loadout is currently really strong and you're handling the hordes with relative ease, then you can try to avoid killing the elite for a while to farm extra XP before moving on to the next stage of your dive. Do this at your own risk though, because the swarms get very scary very quickly. With all of the extra resources from this farming, you will significantly increase your agency when building by allowing you to buy out shops or reroll unfavorable upgrades, essentially giving you control over your build instead of it being up to RNG. Tip 2 is to invest in your future. When presented with build options in the shop or the level up menu, it is way too tempting to always grab damage increasing upgrades. It's important, especially early on in your runs, to take options like increased XP rate, pickup range, luck, mining speed, and movement speed. They may not immediately seem as impactful as a straight up damage increase, but over the course of the run these upgrades get immeasurable value and are more than worth it. Tip 3 is to make good use of exploders. Whether it's setting them off by getting close enough to smell their breath or popping them like an overripe tomato, you should be looking to use exploders to help you do large area damage throughout your runs. Back on the topic of builds, understand the overclock system. Here's a brief breakdown. Every weapon in the game has a set of overclocks that are essentially crazy good upgrades. To get overclocks on your gun, you first have to get that gun to weapon level 12, which permanently unlocks overclocking for that weapon. If this symbol is present in the top left of your weapon, you have not reached level 12 with it yet, and therefore you don't have access to the overclocks for that gun yet. Once this has been achieved, in all future runs when the gun reaches weapon levels 6, 12, or 18, you will be able to choose an overclock. Overclocks will frequently provide you with very meaningful power spikes, and you should try to prioritize upgrading weapons to those level 6, 12, and 18 thresholds. A little rule of thumb that I like to use is I try to have at least one weapon to level 6 before leaving stage 1. My next tip is to plan your escape route ahead of time. Make use of the fact that the terrain is 100% destructible by kiting bugs around large masses of rock and stone. Once the bugs have all been grouped onto one side, you can mine through, effectively funneling all of the bugs into a choke point where you can inflict massive damage. Visualizing your escape route in advance is crucial. A few more general pathing tips that I can give are to stay away from the corners / cliffs, and don't be afraid to tank a few hits in order to avoid larger dangers. Much like the exploders, you should be trying to make use of the supply pod as a weapon. If timed right, the supply pod can instantly kill elites at the end of a stage or deal massive damage to the dreadnought itself. I like to clear out the landing zones as soon as I can on a stage, and then wait until I have the elite in the right position to start charging it up. It feels a bit odd for there to be a minimap in a game that has an isometric camera perspective to begin with, but once 90% of the floor is hidden below a layer of insects, it makes a lot more sense. I've quickly fallen in love with looking at the minimap as it helps me locate very important objectives such as secondary objectives, the resupply pod, magnet power-ups, and general minerals on the map. Make sure to take a peek at it every once in a while to help you make decisions on where to path next. Lastly, try to get as much value out of your magnet power-ups as possible. It functions by sucking in every bit of XP that is on the stage whenever you pick it up. As such, you get much more value if there are boatloads of XP all around the caves, so if possible aim to pick the magnet up as late in the stage as possible to squeeze every last bit of XP out of it that you can. And there you have it, my early on list of tips for DRG Survivor. Do you have any tips that I missed? Let me know in the comments. I may feature them in a follow-up video. Please leave a like if you felt that you learned something. I'm Brandino Rules, and thank you for watching.